Right now, almost 1 in 5 women in the U.S. is regularly, well, essentially power washing her reproductive system with chemical mixtures.
Which is, a practice that major medical associations are practically begging them to stop.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Whether you are furiously cramming for a health science midterm or trying to catch up on the latest in reproductive health, or, I don't know, maybe you're just one of those insanely curious people who needs to know exactly how the human body works, you are in the right place.
It is so great to be here. I mean, we have a literal mountain of information to unpack today.
Oh, we really do.
We're pulling from standard gynecological textbooks, massive epidemiological data from the National Institutes of Health, and some truly wild cutting-edge research on regenerative medicine.
And we are pointing all of this collective knowledge at one specific, surprisingly enduring behavioral practice, which is vaginal douching.
Right.
We are talking about women squirting water, vinegar, baking soda, or, commercial antiseptic mixtures upward into the vaginal canal.
Yeah, something that's been done for centuries.
Decades, centuries, yeah.
Yeah.
But as we dive into the source material today, our mission is to contrast this enduring cultural myth of creating a cleaner body with the actual microscopic reality of what is happening to the tissue.
Because to understand why a practice is harmful, we can't just say, hey, don't do it.
Right, that never works.
No, it doesn't. We first have to understand the sheer complexity of the system that is being disrupted. I mean, the female reproductive tract is not just some passive biological tube.
No, not at all.
It is a highly dynamic, hormonally responsive ecosystem.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because understanding this baseline ecosystem, honestly, it kind of blew my mind.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. It's often referred to as a self-cleaning machine.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was going through the research, I realized a much better analogy for this is like a highly efficient, self-sustaining bakery.
Oh, I like that. That is a really great way to visualize it.
Yeah. So think of the vaginal epithelium, that skin-like lining of the vaginal canal, as the physical bakery building.
Right.
And the bakers working inside are the epithelial cells.
And those bakers are on an endless, exhausting shift.
Totally.
The cells making up that lining are continuously shedding from the surface and replacing themselves from the bottom up.
Which is mitotic division.
Exactly, mitotic division. The foundational layer of cells is constantly splitting and pushing new cells upward to the surface. So it's this endless cycle of creating new bakers and retiring the old ones.
So, what's driving all of this production? Like, who is the manager of this bakery?
The manager is estrogen.
Oh, okay.
At puberty, rising estrogen levels send a signal to this entire operation. Estrogen causes these newly divided epithelial cells to mature, to multiply, and most importantly, it tells them to start hoarding a complex carbohydrate called glycogen.
And this is where the analogy gets really fun. If glycogen is a complex carbohydrate, let's call that the raw whole grains of wheat sitting in the bakery. I mean, it's the fundamental raw ingredient.
It is. So these surface epithelial cells become absolutely packed with this raw glycogen.
It's hoarding it.
Just completely full of it. And eventually, their life cycle ends, and they are cast off into the vaginal canal. We call this process desquamation.
Okay, desquamation.
Right. And when they're cast off, they break open, spilling all of that raw whole grain glycogen into the environment.
But, raw wheat isn't very useful on its own. You need to mill it down into flour.
Which brings us to the millstone. Naturally present in the vaginal fluid is an enzyme called human alpha amylase.
And enzymes are basically biological catalysts, right?
Exactly. They speed up chemical reactions. In this case, the alpha amylase acts as the millstone, grinding down that massive, complex glycogen molecule into smaller, simple sugars.
Like maltose.
Like maltose and alpha-dextrins.
Okay, so the bakery manager, estrogen, tells the cells to gather the raw wheat.
Yeah.
The cells spill the wheat. The enzyme millstone grinds it down into usable, simple sugar flour.
You've got it.
But who is this flour for? Like, who is actually eating these sugars?
The customers in this scenario are the good bacteria.
Microbiome.
Exactly. In a healthy, mature vaginal environment, the microbiome is heavily dominated by bacteria from the Lactobacillus genus.
Lactobacilli, okay.
And they absolutely thrive on those simple sugars. They consume the ground-up glycogen and metabolize it into two very important byproducts.
Which are?
Lactic acid and hydrogen peroxide.
And this is the magic trick of the whole system.
It really is.
That lactic acid drastically drops the pH of the vagina, making it highly acidic. I mean, the sources said we're usually talking between 3.5 and 4.5 on the pH scale.
Which is an incredibly harsh environment for most microbes.
Yeah, for context, a pH of 3.5 is somewhere between, like, the acidity of orange juice and tomato juice.
Right. It creates this invisible, formidable shield. It's just a completely hostile environment for outside invaders.
Harmful bacteria simply cannot survive in a pH that low.
They can't.
Yeah.
And when you add in the hydrogen peroxide produced by the lactobacilli, well, that acts as a natural antiseptic. So you have this brilliantly evolved, self-regulating defense mechanism.
It's just incredible.
It is a perfectly balanced ecosphere. Estrogen drives the glycogen, enzymes break it down, and lactobacilli convert it into an acidic shield.
Right.
Plus, the continuous shedding of the cells and the downward flow of natural fluids physically and chemically clear the environment. It does not need outside help to stay clean.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
If this system is so perfect, why do people intervene? I mean, let's say someone has an infection or a bad odor or, they just finished their period.
Right, the typical reasons.
Yeah. Isn't it just logical human behavior to want to wash that out? I mean, if I get a scrape on my arm and it gets dirty, I wash it with soap and water.
Of course.
So why is squirting just plain water or a mild vinegar mixture into the vagina a bad thing?
What's fascinating here is the concept of the ecologic niche.
The ecologic niche.
Yes, it's a fundamental principle of microbiology. Think of the vaginal lining not just as a bakery, but as a parking lot with a very strictly limited number of parking spaces.
Okay, I'm with you.
In a healthy state, the beneficial lactobacilli are occupying every single one of those parking spots.
The lot is full.
The lot is full, but when you introduce a pressurized fluid, even something as seemingly harmless as plain water, but especially harsh commercial antiseptics, you are physically washing those protective lactobacilli away.
Oh, wow. So you are forcibly clearing out the entire parking lot.
You sweep the lot completely empty, and in doing so, you instantly wash away the lactic acid, which raises the pH,
Making it less acidic.
making the environment much less acidic and far more hospitable to invaders. Now, human biology is resilient.
Sure.
The normal bacteria might recover and repopulate those parking spaces within about 120 minutes.
2 hours.
Yes, but here is the critical danger. During that 2-hour window, you have a vacant ecologic niche. The acidic shield is completely down.
So any harmful bacteria that happen to be, like, hanging around suddenly find themselves looking at prime, free real estate.
Precisely. We call them anaerobic bacteria that thrive in environments without oxygen.
Right.
They absolutely love the deep, closed-off environment of the reproductive tract. When the shield goes down, these harmful anaerobes rapidly overgrow and steal those parking spots before the good lactobacilli can reestablish themselves.
That's terrifying.
And the disruption is actually much worse than just a temporary chemical imbalance. We really need to emphasize the physical trauma caused by this practice.
Yes, the physical damage.
Yeah.
Because the clinical research is very clear on this one specific point. Frequent douching permanently damages the glycogen-producing epithelial layers.
Exactly.
I want to pause on that because that completely changes the stakes for anyone listening.
Yeah.
Going back to our analogy, you aren't just temporarily chasing the good customers out of the bakery with a broom.
No, you're not.
If you are doing this frequently, the harsh chemicals and the mechanical scraping from the fluid actually destroy the ovens.
That is exactly what is happening at a cellular level. You are permanently damaging the epithelial cell's ability to mature and produce glycogen.
And if there is no glycogen?
There is no food. The lactobacilli literally starve to death. The ecosystem cannot rebuild itself. The entire system collapses.
And man, we haven't even touched on the mechanical physics of this yet.
We haven't.
Because douching is not a gentle passive rinse. The fluid is being squeezed from a bottle or a bag. It acts like a power washer.
It really does. And if there are already harmful bacteria or pathogens present in the lower genital tract, well, the sheer pressure of that liquid blasts those pathogens straight up.
Wow.
It forces them through the cervix and into the normally sterile upper reproductive tract. We're talking about blasting bacteria directly into the uterus, the fallopian tubes, and the abdominal cavity.
Which perfectly explains the absolute cascade of long-term health risks I was seeing in the epidemiological data.
Yes, the numbers from the NIH are incredibly sobering.
Because when you think about it, you disrupt the chemical pH, you permanently destroy the tissue's ability to feed the good bacteria, and then you power wash the bad bacteria deep into the organs.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers suddenly make terrifying sense.
They do. What did you find in the data?
Well, I was looking at this, and I had to read the numbers twice.
Hmm.
Women who douche just once a week are 5 times more likely to develop bacterial vaginosis, or BV.
A 500% increase.
Yeah. And the practice is linked to a 73% higher risk of pelvic inflammatory disease.
Kennedy, yeah.
And it increases the risk of an ectopic pregnancy by up to 76%.
And we can trace every single one of those statistics directly back to the mechanical and chemical disruptions we just discussed.
Right.
Like why the massive increase in bacterial vaginosis and why the 73% increase in pelvic inflammatory disease. Because the power washing effect is taking sexually transmitted pathogens like chlamydia or gonorrhea that might have stayed localized and blasting them into the upper tract.
Okay, so how does an infection in the upper tract translate to an ectopic pregnancy? What is the bridge there?
The bridge is inflammatory scarring.
Scarring?
Yeah. Pelvic inflammatory disease is a severe infection of the reproductive organs. When the body tries to fight off that deep infection, it creates a massive inflammatory response, which leaves behind rigid scar tissue.
Okay, I see where this is going.
If the fallopian tubes become scarred and narrowed from this inflammation, a fertilized egg can literally get trapped in the tube on its way to the uterus.
Oh, wow.
It begins to grow inside the tube. That is an ectopic pregnancy, which is a life-threatening medical emergency. And that same scarring is also a primary cause of secondary infertility.
There is also a very specific immune system disruption that happens here, too.
Yeah.
The research notes that altering the vaginal flora through douching actually decreases the body's production of a cytokine called IL-33.
That's right.
What exactly is IL-33?
Think of IL-33 as a vital chemical alarm system.
Okay.
It is a signaling protein that is crucial for mucosal antiviral defense. When the bacterial flora is disrupted and the ecosystem collapses, the production of IL-33 drops significantly.
So the alarm system is unplugged.
The alarm is unplugged. This directly increases the tissue's susceptibility to viral infections, specifically HIV and HPV.
And we know that certain strains of HPV are the primary drivers of cervical cancer.
Exactly. The data shows a direct positive correlation between the frequency of douching and an increased risk of developing cervical cancer.
It is just a horrific domino effect. One behavioral choice knocks over the first domino, washing away the lactic acid, and it leads to systemic, irreversible, life-threatening consequences.
It really does.
And looking at the public health data, to be totally impartial here, this practice spans all demographics, but the sources show higher prevalence among young teens, as well as certain African-American, Hispanic, and lower-income populations.
Yes, the demographic data is very clear on that.
It's often passed down generationally, framed simply as a necessary hygiene routine, which highlights just how desperately we need accessible health education that counters these cultural myths with hard biological facts.
Education is paramount because the science explicitly shows this is not a hygiene practice. It is an active hazard that initiates deep tissue failure.
So we've established that chemical burns and power washing cause irreversible damage, permanently destroying the glycogen-producing epithelial layers.
Yes.
But that begs a massive question.
What's that?
Here's where it gets really interesting. If a pelvic tissue is irreversibly damaged, whether by this practice or by unavoidable severe trauma like a difficult childbirth or even aggressive diseases, how does the body recover?
That is the big question.
Because as humans, we are notoriously terrible at healing deep wounds.
We really are. How the body responds to severe structural damage ultimately determines a patient's long-term quality of life. And solving that problem is the current frontier of regenerative gynecology.
Because right now, our biology has a frustrating evolutionary flaw. We heal by creating rigid, non-functional scar tissue.
Right.
Like if I take a knife and deeply cut the skin on my hand, my body quickly fills that gap with a scar. It patches the hole to keep me from bleeding, but that patch is useless.
It doesn't act like skin anymore.
Exactly. That scar tissue doesn't sweat, it doesn't grow hair, and it doesn't stretch the same way normal skin does. So how does modern medicine actually repair deep pelvic damage without just filling the reproductive organs with stiff, rigid scar tissue?
Well, to understand the solutions scientists are working on, we have to look at the stark difference between adult wound healing and fetal womb healing.
Fetal healing, like inside the womb.
Yes. In an adult, the body's response to a severe injury favors rapid, panicked patching. The immune system rushes in to stabilize the wound as fast as possible, and it primarily does this by dumping type I collagen into the gap.
Type I collagen.
Right. Type I collagen is great for mechanical strength. It is incredibly rigid and tough, but it has zero elasticity. It impedes the movement of other cells. It forms that stiff, unyielding scar you just mentioned.
It's like patching a massive pothole in the road with cheap, hard concrete.
Oh, that's good.
Sure fills the hole so cars don't fall in, but it's a terrible bumpy ride and it ruins the suspension over time.
That is a perfect analogy. But fetal wound healing, how a fetus heals while still developing inside the womb, is entirely different. It's completely scarless.
Wow, completely scarless.
Yes. Fetal healing utilizes type 3 collagen, which is highly elastic and flexible.
Type 3.
Right. The fetal environment is naturally anti-inflammatory, and it relies heavily on progenitor cells that migrate to the site of the injury to completely rebuild the complex tissue exactly as it was originally designed, rather than just paving over it with concrete.
So the goal of regenerative gynecology is basically trying to trick an adult woman's body into healing like a fetus.
That is the ultimate holy grail of this research, to redirect the adult body's default response away from destructive, rigid scar formation and steer it toward constructive, functional repair.
That is wild.
And the cutting-edge treatments being developed right now are showing incredible promise in doing exactly that.
Let's go through some of these because a few of them sound like pure science fiction, but the sources say they are being used in clinics right now.
They are.
The first one that caught my eye is platelet-rich plasma, or PRP.
PRP is fascinating primarily because it is autologous, meaning it comes entirely from the patient's own body.
No synthetic drugs.
No synthetic drugs involved. Doctors draw a small amount of the patient's blood, put it in a centrifuge, and spin it down to isolate and highly concentrate the blood platelets.
Okay.
They then inject that concentrated plasma directly into the injured pelvic tissue. Platelets are essentially tiny cargo ships packed with alpha granules that release massive amounts of growth factors.
So you are basically bathing the injured, failing tissue in a hyper-concentrated dose of your body's own build-in repair signal.
Exactly. And the clinical results are striking. In several small case series, PRP infused directly into a damaged uterus actually increased the endometrial thickness by 20%.
40%.
Yes. It stimulates a process called angiogenesis, which is the biological formation of brand new blood vessels from existing ones, bringing fresh oxygen and promoting new cell growth in dead zones.
That is so cool. Then there is the research on mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs.
Right. MSCs take the healing process a step further.
Yeah.
These are adult stem cells that can be safely isolated from a patient's own bone marrow or even their adipose fat tissue. What makes MSCs so valuable in gynecology is their unique behavior. They are highly migratory.
Meaning they move around.
Yes. If you introduce them into the body, they actively seek out the chemical distress signals of an injury site. But here is the interesting part. Once they arrive at the damaged pelvic floor, they don't necessarily turn into new muscle tissue themselves.
Wait, if they are becoming the new tissue, what are they doing?
They act more like biological general contractors.
General contraction.
Yeah, they secrete powerful anti-inflammatory signals and unique growth factors that completely change the local microenvironment. They tell the surrounding native adult cells to calm down, stop producing that rigid type I collagen concrete, and start remodeling the area with elastic fibers.
That's amazing.
In animal models of severe pelvic floor dysfunction, MSCs drastically reduced inflammation and guided the body to increase elastin and healthy, flexible connective tissue.
Which brings us to the third major innovation, which genuinely took me a minute to wrap my head around.
The bioscaffolds.
Yes, extracellular matrix bioscaffolds, specifically hydrogels.
This is where tissue engineering gets truly remarkable. Think of the extracellular matrix, or ECM, as the invisible biological scaffolding that holds all of your cells together in a 3D space. It is the architectural framework of your organs.
The process to make this blew my mind. Researchers take organic tissue, often from porcine or pig sources, and they run it through a process to decellularize it.
Right.
They essentially wash away all of the pig's DNA, all the blood, and all the actual living cells, leaving behind nothing but the ghost structure.
A ghost structure.
Just the pure translucent architectural scaffolding.
That is a great way to describe it, but that empty scaffolding is not biologically inert. It is naturally packed with bioactive peptides.
Right.
Scientists process this ghost structure into an injectable liquid hydrogel. Let's say a woman has a severe tear in her pelvic floor muscle from childbirth.
Right.
When this hydrogel is injected into the tear, it physically fills the gap, but it also acts as a chemical guide. Instead of the immune system rushing in to build a concrete scar wall, the hydrogel signals the patient's own stem cells to migrate into the gel and use it as a blueprint.
Oh, wow. It changes the construction blueprint on the fly?
Exactly.
Instead of building a rigid wall, it tells the body to build a flexible, living net of healthy muscle.
Yes.
It is incredible. We are moving from a medical paradigm of just surgically dealing with the scar tissue to actively regenerating the original, highly complex machinery of the reproductive tract.
It is a massive leap forward for women's health. But, looking at these incredibly complex, expensive regenerative treatments really underscores everything we discussed in the first half of our deep dive.
So what does this all mean when we put it together?
Oh.
If we step back and look at the entire picture, from the microbiology to the tissue engineering, the narrative is incredibly clear. The female reproductive ecosystem is a self-cleaning marvel. Millions of years of evolution have fine-tuned a microenvironment where hormones, complex carbohydrates, and bacteria work in perfect, delicate harmony to create an impenetrable defensive shield.
And attempting to outsmart that evolutionary masterpiece with a $3 plastic bottle of scented fluid is not just completely ineffective, it is a recipe for catastrophic biological failure.
Right.
You are permanently destroying the tissue's ability to produce glycogen, you are starving the protective bacteria, and literally power washing disease-causing pathogens deep into the sterile reproductive organs.
You are firing the bakers, destroying the ovens, and then wondering why the bakery is failing.
Well put.
But I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought that I found buried deep in the immunology section of our research today.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
We talked endlessly about how the lactobacilli produce lactic acid to keep the pH low and kill bad bacteria. But that is not all that lactic acid does.
This is honestly one of my favorite biological details in the entire stack of literature.
The research shows that the lactic acid produced by the vaginal microbiome actually facilitates DNA repair in the human epithelial cells.
Yes.
And it does this through a process of epigenetic regulation called histone acetylation.
And to understand why that is so amazing, you have to picture how DNA fits inside a cell. Your DNA is incredibly long, so it is tightly wrapped around proteins called histones.
Kind of like thread wrapped tightly around a wooden spool.
Exactly like thread around a spool.
Yeah.
But if the DNA thread is damaged and needs to be repaired, the cell's repair proteins can't access it because it's wrapped too tightly around the spool.
Makes sense.
And this is where the bacteria come in. The lactic acid produced by the microbiome chemically alters those histone spools.
Whoa.
It causes the spools to loosen, allowing the DNA thread to unspool just enough so the host cell's repair machinery can get in there and fix the broken genetic strands.
It is a profound, almost magical symbiosis. I mean, the bacteria are not just polite guests renting space in the parking lot.
No, they aren't.
They were actively chemically maintaining the genetic integrity of the human cells they live on.
It gives you a whole new respect for the microscopic world inside us. The human body is vastly more complex and cooperative than we usually give it credit for.
It really is. Which leaves us with this final question to ponder long after you finish listening today. If the microscopic bacteria living inside of us are literally helping to unspool and repair our broken DNA, what other incredible, invisible cellular superpowers are we unknowingly washing down the drain every single day in the name of modern hygiene?
It definitely forces you to rethink what it actually means to be clean.
It sure does. Step away from the power washer and don't wash away your bakers. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will see you next time.